Without further ado, Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, Ed. How you doing today?
Man, I can't complain. It's a sunny day. It's not raining. We're not all trying to grow gills because it's been raining a lot here in Dallas, which we need all the rain we can get. But at some point, it gets a little bit overkill. But, Jack, as we kind of chatted a little bit earlier, you talked about some things you want to cover today with regard to some of the strategies you're putting in place right now. Kind of get us up to speed on some of those.
Right, and so as we were talking off the air, normally the column, the blog that I've written for the station has had to do with gap and go, and that's where a company, usually responding to some favorable news, will gap open in the morning to a price that was higher than it closed the day before. So, for example, this morning we had something called IIVI, and it closed yesterday at $40.22. It opened today at $40.55 and made a high of about $40.60. 5 minutes later, when it went to $40.61, we got into it. And then we had an automatic robot take us out of it, nicely higher at $41.20. Well, what happened during that period of market activity where we had so much volatility and the market was down, everybody thought the world was coming to an end, a lot of these things were not working as well as they had in the past. So I've been introducing some other trades that we can make from time to time that I'll feature on the blog. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay. So one of them today was interesting because it combined the old with the new. And the old idea was the gap and go. And so we had Aquantia Corp., which is a small cap operating in tech hardware industry based in the U.S. and kind of following behind some of the bigger leaders there, starting to catch up. So we had a gap trade today where we bought it at $16.95, and then we had an automatic sell a couple of hours later at $17.85. But the other thing that happened was this is a fairly recent IPO, and by that I mean within the last year.
Okay.
And we have I've introduced a swing trade dash weekly high IPO trade.
Now you're speaking my language. As a former swing trader, we had a lot of fun with those.
Okay, and so what it means, a swing trade is something that you stay in from more than one day, so you're not just a day trader, to sometimes as long as 3 months. But typically it's going to be 3 to 5 weeks.
I don't know, man. Jack,
you know.
a swing trade for me was more like 2 days for the most part. Usually I'd buy the close and sell the open, something like that, in lieu of holding it that long. I don't know if my patience would have allowed me to do that, so I'm more power to you.
But, a lot of our listeners and subscribers, they are a little more patient than you and I. So they might want to, and so you might want to hold this. And the idea is that if the IPO is favorably received and it makes a new high on a weekly basis, if you're not already in it, get in it as it goes 1 penny above the high of the previous week. And that happened with this stock today. So even though on a day trade we sell it out at $17.85, on a swing trade we were just buying it at $17.10, and hopefully we think in the next week it'll go to $20. And so I've got that in the blog today, illustrating kind of a 2-for-1. We got our normal gap and go, and then this new swing trade weekly high IPO. So that's one of them today.
Well, one of the things I liked about quote unquote swing trading IPOs and as such is, one, typically you have a lot of positive momentum in the stock as because it has IPO recently, and they're trying to keep that positive momentum going. And the indication from the market maker will give you a lot with regard to where they expect it to go to, because we know they're entering supporting bids for the stock to keep it up. And we can play that psychology for them going back and forth as far as the stock is concerned. So another great strategy from you.
Well, and there's another one that we're going to start using a little more of. We had a good example of it today. We had it earlier in the week with a company, a biotech company called Discerna. But you guys at WFN1, at World Finance News, you have a relationship with Zach, Small Cap Research.
That is correct.
Biotechnology. Now listen, you need an expert in biotech because it's really difficult to understand all this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. When do they dilute by raising capital? I mean, there's just so much to go with.
Let's talk about that for just a second. As a quote unquote former trader and member of different broker dealers who brought a lot of biotech companies public, there are a couple of things that play a role in the value of a biotech. Obviously, the pipeline of drugs they have that are approvable plays a big part in it. The other side of it is that the closer they get to potentially having that drug go or be approved and go to the market, those things you see a lot of momentum trade into that particular position too. As far as Zach is concerned, and John Vandermosen, who actually does our show, and we actually had the CEO of Dicerna on the show on Wednesday. One of the things that's important is getting the right information out, and that's what we try to do with companies like Dicerna and having John on the show. We try to get him to simplify the process and get people to understand the dynamics behind what's actually happening with the drug, why it's important, and why we think it'll make a difference as far as the value of the stock is concerned.
That's terrific. And your producer, William Fisher, he was pretty alert. He noticed that I had a couple of trades over the last 2 weeks in Dicerna, and so he said, why don't I get in touch with John at Zacks Small Cap Research, and let's see what we can do. And what resulted from that was a recent client of theirs, RXI Pharmaceuticals, recently became a client. They just wrote it up.
Right.
They were on your show on the 2nd.
That is correct.
And we had a trade in it today. It was a red to green, and red to green is not a gapper, but it's one the stock's been jumping a little bit recently, and then it opens lower today, but then resumes the uptrend by turning green, by going higher than yesterday's close, and that was $3.47 for RXI Pharmaceuticals,
right.
And then 347 went up to 437, and we peeled some off. But I say in the blog, note, I'm considering making a swing trade out of this, considering Zach's favorable fundamental research and their $20 target price.
Well, the favorable fundamental research that we have,
it kind of adds a new element
it does.
For an old line trader like myself to have excellent fundamental research. So I just think that the service you're providing at World Finance News is exactly on target.
Well, as I was saying, the fundamental research that Zach puts out is obviously, you have an expert that's actually putting that information out and giving you neutral information. Yes, they may have a buy signal on the stock. They're not necessarily recommending the stock as far as the show is concerned. But what they are trying to do is make sure that those individuals who are out there interested in trading these stocks have information on real companies with real products, with real earnings, real management, and real opportunities. So all we're trying to do is make sure that people are abreast of that information and they have a really good opportunity to look at it from a neutral fashion and make the trading decision on their own. Jack, we have about a minute left. What do you want to leave the audience with?
Well, just trying to stay humble because I'm involved in it too. It's not that I'm any genius, and of course, once again, nothing that appears here is supposed to be considered, a recommendation as far as WFN1 is concerned. But I just think this combination of fundamental research with, if it just so happens that I see a stock that's very tradable and it's also one of their clients, I think we've got a terrific double header there, don't you? I
do indeed. Recall, we're here to educate and empower people from the investment side, the technology side, the innovation side, and we think we take that pretty seriously around here. So having a partner like Zach and having partners like you who give us the chance to give people good information and good ideas and give them the chance to think on their own is really what we're all about. Jack, we're out of time. We'll look to talk to you this next time. After this break, I'll be back with the Private Equity Spotlight. We'll talk about some of the things that happened here recently with the tariffs and NAFTA. I'll be right back.